Hey, good afternoon, people. Um, Thank y'all for joining me today. I want to say first off before I start, what up, Tommy Temple? How you doing, man? Before I start, of course, like everybody else around the world, just gotta express up, my sympathies to the family of Kobe Bryant, and wish them some comfort in this time. It's crazy, peace and power, sister Lisa Bales, and wish them some comfort at this time. But very tragic situation, and I don't want to add too much more to that, to the whole Kobe Bryant thing. Peace, Lou, peace, peace. I don't want to add nothing else to that because I already see people online going way overboard, reaching. I mean, we black people love a conspiracy theory, boy. So I'm not gonna go there. You know what I mean? I'm gonna leave that alone and just wish the family some comfort. That's it. Yeah, so like the topic says, if anybody wants to get on, let me just right, here we go. If anybody wants to get on with me, let's go. So the topic says, I mean, boxing fans are highly annoyed over Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua, and it all boils down to money. So let's first start with Eddie Hearn and why they're upset with Eddie Hearn today, because they're always upset with Eddie Hearn for some reason. Eddie Hearn made a comment to, I think it was Boxing Social or IFL, one of those people. Eddie Hearn says, is a strong possibility that if Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua fight, it might not end up being in England. It might not end up being in Wembley because people will pay an enormous amount of money for that fight that the people in England, the sites in England, are not going to be willing to hand over. And I think he said, in England, that fight might be 40 million pounds or something like that. He was just throwing random numbers out there. But there might be sites that might offer them hundreds of millions, right? So this fight might be between the 150 to 200 million range or something like that. And definitely. Rest in power to them, man. Rest in power. Right. So he was saying that there are sites that for that particular fight or any fight like that, I guess, there are sites that are willing to offer hundreds of millions of dollars for the fight. And I remember after the Saudi fight, I told people, I said that Saudi Arabia is not going to go away. This is not a one-off situation. They're not going to go away. People, I don't know if people really expected these people to do a one-off Anthony Joshua fight. Eddie Hearn has already said that they would love to have all of Anthony Joshua's fights, all. These are people with a lot of excess income, and they want entertainment to come to their country. They don't have anything else. They don't really have a lot of different types of sporting, stuff there in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia tried their hand at bringing UFC over there. I remember one of the first combat sports things I remember being in Abu Dhabi was the Abu Dhabi, the Abu Dhabi combat sports thing, the ADCC, and it was like grappling, and it used to be in Abu Dhabi. Now we see they're moving in. They built a whole, I think it was for the UFC. They built a stadium for the UFC at one point. They have a F1 stadium, I think. So they're trying to do things to bring a lot more entertainment into. They want to make that the entertainment hub of that part of the world. So people are upset because Eddie Hearn said, "What up, Shizbiz? If anybody wants to jump on, hit the link, jump on with me, vibe with me, right?" Now, Eddie Hearn is a promoter. He represents Anthony Joshua. And if people are upset with Eddie Hearn, I don't see why you're upset with Eddie Hearn. Of course, Eddie Hearn would like to have the fight in England. Of course, I would think so. But you can't deny fees from someplace else that it's not like 10 million more, nothing like that. 100 million more? You're telling me Eddie Hearn shouldn't entertain any offers? Exactly, Tommy Temper. And that's just what the guy is saying. But people are pissed. I mean, you go on Twitter and you hear people saying, well, how much more money does Anthony Joshua need? How much more does he need? Let me show you an exchange I had with one guy. It's just crazy, right? Let me show you this exchange I had with this one guy on Twitter, right? Let me share it. So here it is. This person says, how does it if you have more money, more than enough money anyway? Because I started off by saying, you know, there's $100 million. I mean, he's like, $100 million makes no difference. I'm like, $100 million makes no difference? And he's like, AJ has earned 80 million from his last fight. He will live off the interest very comfortably along with sponsorships. That's just one. I mean, people are, you know, if you go on Twitter, you'll see the, no problem, Tommy Temper. If you go on Twitter, you'll see the exchanges. The interview with Eddie Hearn, I think was IFL, has all these thumbs down. Exactly. Exactly. These people don't understand. These people do not understand. Listen, Anthony Joshua is worth, I mean, this dude commands so much money globally. Why do you think Canelo Alvarez wants to go fight in Japan? Why do you think he wants to go fight in Japan? Because he saw what happened in Saudi Arabia. They know what Anthony Joshua made, right? UGC, what up? Now, I was just explaining that people are pissed off at Eddie Hearn. Matter of fact, I'm going to find the interview and I'm going to share it with everybody so y'all can hear what Eddie Hearn said, because, I mean, I personally wasn't upset at it. I mean, I'm not English. I'm not a Brit, so I don't have the same, you know, Joe Rogan versus for the title. I got Joe Rogan in that one. Let me pull up this interview. Just give me a second, because I want y'all to see what Eddie Hearn said and tell me if this man is wrong. I really don't understand. One second, please. Just give me 1 second, people. Oh, here we go. I got it. Here we go. I got it. So I'm going to share the IFL interview with y'all. I've been seeing comments that Joshua is greedy. Apparently, Joshua is greedy. And that's why the honest video hasn't happened yet. Joshua is the problem. He's greedy, apparently. But again, let me not say what Eddie Hearn, let me let Eddie Hearn speak for himself and tell me what y'all think. Again, this video is comments by Ifltv. Please don't flag my channel. I'm sharing it. I'm not copy and pasting it. Ifltv.
Big plans now for Saudi. Big plans. The first one was so successful that it's really the go ahead to do 3 or 4 in 2020.
I'm sure the UK fans won't want to hear this, but there's whispers going around that from Fury's side that Joshua Fury won't happen in the UK?
That won't happen. I can't see how it does.
So I can understand that.
I just can't see. I mean, for me, it should happen in the UK. And if there's a way to do it, we'll do it. But the problem is the money that could be... Because the government here don't invest in bringing mega events to the UK, they don't necessarily need to. Now, they've got a Premier League football game every weekend that's selling 50, 60, 80,000. But other countries, whether it's Nigeria, whether it's Congo, whether it's China, whether it's Saudi, whether it's Qatar, whether it's Abu Dhabi, their government and their tourism department has a huge pot of money that they're looking to bring major events, entertainment acts to showcase their country to the world as a tourism destination. So, and you can't, you know, I know it's easy. Like someone said to me the other day, what was it? Oh, that was it last night. Someone just messaged me and said, for fuck's sake, Eddie, Saudi Arabia, like, just who cares about the money? Just, you're so greedy, just do it in England. It's like, do you think that I go up to the guys and say, guys, you can make 150 million each to do it in Saudi or 40 million in the UK? But Dave on Twitter from Rochdale says you're a cunt and you got to do it, excuse my language, and you got to do it in England. It doesn't work like that. Have a brain, you know? So, and it's not even that the fighters are greedy. If it was the difference of 10 million each, but it's not. It's double to go somewhere else. And it can't be ignored, especially a fight like that. So it's a one-off.
What about Vegas? Do you think MGM could compete having Joshua Fury with the Saudis and Dubai, etc.?
No, is the answer. But I think that it's a case of they're probably the only people, along with a huge broadcast fee from DAZN, or if all of a sudden it does become a 2 million pay-per-view fight. But what we found from the Reese fight is the subscription.
All right, I'm not going to play no more before people get pissed off at me. All right, so that was Eddie Hearn on why the thing wouldn't come to England. That's what he said. What do y'all think about what he said? What do y'all think? The man clearly said for him, he will have it in England. But he said you have to understand that these countries are backed by their governments. Their governments are putting up this money. This isn't like private people from a casino buying the fight for site fee. This is governments putting up this money, governments backing to have these fights come to their countries so people can then come to their countries for tourism. They don't understand. Who was it? Who just said it? It was Lou. Lou says, I don't think people really understand the money that's floating around in that area of the world. They don't understand. They don't get it. Especially these countries that these countries that really don't get a lot of these events, they will spend big money for that event. They want that event to come there. And they'll give you whatever you want because of the back end stuff that will come, the tourism that'll come, the media that will come. They want that. So what Eddie Hearn is saying is that he cannot ignore site fee offers for that fight. He can't ignore it. So I don't see nothing wrong Eddie Hearn said. Eddie Hearn's job as a promoter and as I don't know if he manages Joshua or not, but as Joshua's partner or whatever, is that he has to find the most revenue for his client. He would be irresponsible if he ignores the site fee. He would be irresponsible. Are people serious? Like, why are you so upset? I understand if you're from Britain, you want two Brits fighting in England. I get it. But you can't be so upset with these people that they're going to put business sometimes first, because this is a one-off fight. You can't ignore it. You got to maximize on it. So that's my opinion. I don't see why people are so annoyed. Again, I am not a Brit, so I don't carry around the same issues like other people. Well, was Ali greedy when he got paid $5 million for Rumble in the Jungle? No, boxing. You goddamn right. And that was $5 million. You're telling me Eddie Hearn should ignore if these people want to pay him 100 and something plus $1 million. You know what I'm saying? 100 and something plus $1 million. That he should ignore that for his client? No, he shouldn't. He shouldn't. You got people online telling me Anthony Joshua has made enough money. Who are you to tell Anthony Joshua how much he should make? You think that man collected 4 belts just for a game? He collected 4 belts and made himself marketable for a reason, for opportunities just like this. You think he did all this just for fun? You think people go into a boxing ring and be like, nah, I'll fight at a bargain? I want people to grow up. Shizbiz says fanboys mad that their fighters ain't getting that kind of money. I guess so. But like I asked this certain individual on Twitter, how come all of this is at the feet of Anthony Joshua? Would Tyson Fury ducked the Wilder rematch at first so he could secure a bigger contract with Top Rank? Tyson Fury did that, and Tyson Fury was cheered. People were like, yeah, I see why, go make your money with Top Rank and all of that. He secured a bigger bag, as they call it, as Americans say. He secured a bag. But somehow, Anthony Joshua's promoter is saying, I can't ignore if somebody offers me double $100 million something for my client to come over there to fight. I can't ignore that. Facts, Lou. I asked the gentleman on Twitter, say, don't you try and make as much money as you can make at whatever job you do? At whatever job you do, you try and make as much money as possible. But you're telling Anthony Joshua, who is going into a boxing ring, getting punched in the eye, people trying to do something to disable him for life. You're telling him he's made enough money. Oh, you've made enough money. Let me say it again. If they offer you 5 times the amount of money for the same job, you would not, you normally do, they would take it. You would take the money. And anybody telling you otherwise is lying. You damn right, Black. Hit the like button, please. I would appreciate that. Leave a comment. Even if you don't agree with me, leave a comment. I want all opinions, please. Exactly. It's like the NBA. You gotta get your payday. You have to get it. Again, I am not a Brit. So if there are Brits in here, I see Lou with the Arsenal. I know Tommy Temper is a Brit. If anybody else is in here, give me your opinion. I want to hear from you. What do you think? What do you think? Well, if you're upset, why is it that it's Anthony Joshua's fault? But Tyson Fury got cheered when he took the Top Rank deal and scuttled the rematch at first for a bigger cut of the pie. He was cheered for that, but Anthony Joshua's made too much money. What? It's not like Anthony Joshua's fighting pies. Anthony Joshua's fighting the best opposition available to him to fight, which has really been the best opposition in boxing. It's not like he hasn't worked for his money. Not like he hasn't worked for the right to earn this type of money. Fox has been overpaying and artificially inflating Wilder's market value just to get a better cut of deal. They had to. The Zone has run the market up. They're not making back that money on Deontay Wilder. They're not making the money back. So they want to say, oh, well, look, Wilder's making $20 million. So, you know what I'm saying? You got to give us a bigger pay. Now he wants 50-50, right? But we're going to get into that just now. We're just dealing with Eddie Hearn and the fact that he has said public that he's going to entertain any talk of $100 million offers for Anthony Joshua versus whoever fight. Oh, Irish living in England. Okay. If Eddie Hearn was your manager, like I remember I used to say, because Tank Davis had said he never saw any offers from Eddie Hearn, but it couldn't have been good because his team never showed it to him. And I said that was irresponsible of his team, and and in my opinion, that's like theft. You're telling me Eddie Hearn should do the same with these. So somebody sends a site fee for Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder or whoever. And that site fee, if the normal fee for England was going to be, say, $20 million in the pot. But somebody said, look, I want this fight so bad. I want this fight so bad. I will pay you $80 million for Anthony Joshua to fight Dave Allen. Eddie Hearn is not supposed to look at that. People got to get real, man. People got to get real. I always say, why is it that AJ that's got to step back to accommodate Wilder and Fury? AJ's, that's all I'm saying. And that's going to lead into what I want to talk about next. Because now they're mad at Anthony Joshua. So it's a whole thing. Now they're pissed off at Anthony Joshua. And it's not really a lot of people, but there's a certain clique of people that's pissed at Anthony Joshua that has all of a sudden taking shit out of context about Anthony Joshua. But we're going to talk about that just now. So I want y'all to tell me, what do you think about Eddie Hearn entertaining these offers for Joshua versus Wilder? Tell me, what do y'all think about that? Should he tell Anthony Joshua? Because Eddie Hearn cannot tell Anthony Joshua not to entertain these things. Eddie Hearn is doing a responsible thing. He's telling Joshua what's out there available to him. All right? So should Anthony Joshua say, oh, I've made enough money. I'll ignore $100 million more and come fight wherever for $30 million? Man, please. Let's see what's inside here in the chat. Tim W, what it do? What it do? How are you, sir? How are you, sir? Watching some old fights, and recently a lot of greats dropped their belts. They set the belts on. It's one of those classic fights. There you go. I guess so. Eddie's a promoter. He's doing what he said. You goddamn right. That's his job. Anthony Joshua fights, and Eddie Hearn looks for the most money for his client's talents. That's his job. Primary job of promoter. How do I get the most money for my client? That's his job. So again, I get why British fans would be annoyed because they want that fight in England. And of course, Eddie Hearn and them would love to have the fight in England because it's a better storyline. It's easier to promote. It's there's more going for it there. All the logistics are easier. It's just easier to do. But if he has an offer like that from Saudi Arabia, and I understand the Nigerian government has in fact shown interest in having Anthony Joshua come and fight there. They have shown interest in that. That's what I understand. And Eddie Hearn keeps mentioning Congo. They apparently have also. They want to redo. Yeah, Charles D. Blessed. Charles D. Come to no man. Let me talk about this thing. Boxers have a short shelf life. It's about maximizing the income while they can. I don't like that is simple. I think people just end up talking because they just they have quick fingers and they don't engage their mind first. Get the smoke. Good day, sir. Good day. Thank you for coming to my stream, man. Appreciate that. Appreciate that, man. That's his job. That's Eddie Hearn's job, to look for the most money for his client's talent. That's it. It's his primary job. So that's my opinion. I'd love to hear what y'all think on that. Just give me a second. Let me pull something else up here so we can listen to what people say rather than me saying it. One second. So this leads me to my next topic that I want to talk about. People are upset about Anthony Joshua and his comments about that he would like it explained to him, broken down to him, why the fight between him and Wilder or him and Fury needs to be 50-50, right? He said, you know, just break it down to me, make it make sense to me, and then we'll see, right? Because Eddie Hearn had already said, in his opinion, to get the fight done, it'll probably need to be 50-50, right? Anthony Joshua says, you know, break it down to me, do the math, and I'll see. Let's hear what Anthony Joshua said to, I think it's Coogan doing the interview on Ifltv.
It's saying that a fight with you against a Wilder or Fury would be a 50-50 split. That's how it would be now. Is that you've accepted that now, that in your head that to make them fights that it would have to be that kind of split?
I'll just ask, what's his reason?
Didn't really give a reason, but I'm assuming
it was like when like Andy was champion and he won the belts and was having issues about where it was. There was a lot of uproar to say Andy's a champion, he should decide where it was. Andy's not the champion. Do you know what I mean? So there is that aspect. You have to listen to what people say. So there is that aspect of when you're one of the driving forces in the heavyweight division, you do have a bit more of a say. So every time I now get the belt, it's like 50-50 or what's the other thing we was talking about?
Are you saying it shouldn't be 50-50 then?
I'm saying that if you explain why, everything takes explanation. I don't understand why it should be at the minute. You know what I mean?
Does it have something to do with the fact that you have been beaten now?
Well, if it was the biggest upset of 2019 and I came back in December, that must be the biggest comeback. So I now want it. I want it all. I want 70%. I just made the biggest comeback that the world's seen in our boxing history. It was the biggest upset, and I came back straight away. Can I give you a call back, please?
We're talking about the split.
The split. I could say I made the biggest comeback of last year and I would like 70%, but in reality, I know that's not the case. So what they would have to do with me, with my ego on my side, saying I want 70%, now I explain and say, look, that's not really the case. That's not where we are right now in terms of splits. This is why, that's why. These are the stats and facts. And I'll say, you know what, that makes sense to me. It has to make sense.
So you have to be told and explain exactly why that warrants a 50-50 split with either Wilder and Fury for you to consider that. Is that what you're saying?
Not so much consider, but just for it to make sense in my head. It's got to be right in your head. I'm going into fight. I'm going into war, innit?
Right. So that's what he had to say about the 50-50 situation. Again, for me, it makes sense. But of course, people pick out what they want to pick out. Oh, Anthony Joshua says he wants 70%. Anthony Joshua said that just as a number he's throwing. He's saying, you know what I'm saying, if I make the biggest comeback, I mean, my ego might say I want 70%, but you have to break it down to me. So then I have to understand. You heard what the man said. He says in reality, he knows it's not like that. But he said, you know, he says, just, you know, do the math, show me the numbers so it can make sense to me. Again, people are pissed off at Anthony Joshua. And I'm thinking, like, is it that people just emotional? That they're just mad at everything? They're just pissed off at everything? You know, here's a man that has not flopped in any of his televised events yet. None that he's carried. He's not flopped once. He's brought home numbers. He's made big money. He has accomplishments with belts. But somehow, when it comes to him in particular, everybody wants 50-50. Fury wants 50-50, and Fury wanted 50-50 even before he fought Wilder the first time. Before the first time, Tyson Fury said, I want 50-50. Deontay Wilder wants 50-50. And he was saying 50-50 before the first Tyson Fury fight. Matter of fact, he said he wants 60-40 before the first Fury fight if he beat Fury. He wants 60-40 his favor. But for some reason, when Ruiz had them belts, Deontay Wilder wasn't talking about 50-50 when Ruiz has the belts. You think Deontay Wilder would have given Andy Ruiz 50-50? You think so? But all the man said was that just show me the stats, show me the math, break it down to me, make it make sense to me. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? Tell me what y'all think. What's wrong with that? You say, wow, 70, okay. But, you know, you lean more towards 60%, okay. Fury only has one notable win on his record. That's just logical. If you're running a business and you invest into a smaller business, you need to see the detailed finance in order to determine whether it's beneficial for you to go through. So you're saying Fury and Wilder are smaller businesses, sir? Is that what you're saying? But I mean, again, when I saw the outrage, I was kind of like, what is happening? So I go on and watch these interviews to see what's actually said. And I don't see a problem with anything that's said. For some reason, with Anthony Joshua, it's always, I want 50-50 or no fight. It's like you're trying to strong arm this dude. But these people don't give 50-50 to anybody else. Something is wrong. Give me a second. If 50-50 makes the fight, let's get it on. Hey, that's what Eddie Hearn said. 50-50, he said, okay, whatever, no problem. You know what I'm saying? But again, Anthony Joshua didn't say in that interview, he would not give it. All he said is, make the shit, just break the finances down for me so we can see the numbers. You know what I'm saying? That's it. He says he needs it for his own mind. Some people need that, right? So he might end up saying, shit, 50-50, let's roll. But all he's saying, Wilder brings the USA pay-per-view. Smoke. Wilder brings what? Wilder don't bring no USA pay-per-view, sir. Wilder don't bring no USA pay-per-view. You know you Wilder don't bring the USA pay-per-view. Come on. Fifty-50 is cool. Hey, shit, I don't have a problem with it. He gets 50-50, that's up to him. I could argue that these people have not done enough and they do not bring in, and they do not bring the same stuff that Anthony Joshua does, because Wilder does not do big numbers in the US. And Tyson Fury doesn't do big numbers anywhere. The US or England, he doesn't do big numbers. So if Anthony Joshua is saying, show us the numbers so we can add it up to see if it's worth me doing 50-50, I don't see nothing wrong with that. And I don't have an issue with that. And hey, I'm not gonna lie to you, Smoke. People don't want to hear that. But if people don't want to hear it, that's not gonna stop the man from saying it. Charles D, good day, sir.
What's going on?
Hey, easy, brethren.
Yeah, I was just listening. I got a couple minutes to kill.
Yeah.
That 50-50.
Yeah.
I mean, if it gets it done, I don't agree with it. 60-40 seems about right. But if 50-50 gets it done, then it gets it done. But watch there be other roadblocks put in the way once that's squared off.
Hold on. You think if Anthony Joshua says, you know what, 50-50, let's go. Do you think there's gonna be something else?
Yep. Because say he gives Wilder what he wants, 50-50, right?
Yeah.
AJ's gonna want the fight to take place in the UK.
Yeah.
Wilder is probably not gonna want to do the fight in the UK. That'll be roadblock number one. Broadcast. Who's gonna host it? That's gonna end up being another issue. Well, it's gonna be something to stop this fight from happening. It's just gonna keep repeating itself, and it gets fucking aggravating.
But let me ask you something. The only people that can put the money up for this we have seen is again DAZN and Sky. That's the only people that's gonna put the money up for this, like broadcaster wise, because they couldn't match the $100 million offer. So they didn't even bother trying to renegotiate. They just said no. They left. You're telling me if Anthony Joshua says no problem, but like Eddie Hearn said in the first video, if the Tyson Fury fight is not going to happen in the UK, he says more than likely somebody's going to send a site fee for this that the UK cannot match.
Of course, somebody's going to put money up for that fight because it's a huge fight.
Right, but people are pissed at that. They don't want to hear that because they're always two UK guys. But Eddie Hearn is doing his job. Eddie Hearn is a promoter. If someone offer my client this money, I have to listen.
And that's his job.
No, if Anthony, which I think is a bigger global fight, Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder, there is no American site or English site that's gonna pay enough money. If these Saudis, you already see Turkey throwing their name in there to get Anthony Joshua and Kuda Pulev to fight in Turkey. You understand?
Yeah.
You're telling there's gonna be people that's gonna pay hundreds of millions of dollars for that fight to happen. In Saudi Arabia will do it. Nigeria with all that corrupt oil money will do it. You understand? Because governments back these fights. These aren't private. Governments back these things to come to their country. So that fight mightn't even happen in the US either.
I just think it's going to be another roadblock. It's going to be something that stagnates this shit.
Man, I don't.
It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be no. It's one big fucking shit show. It's a dick tugging contest right now.
But the problem is, but if that's going to be a problem, who's going to end up losing out? Because, like people are saying, and I don't know if it's true, but they said Anthony Joshua made $80-something million in Saudi Arabia.
He ain't losing out. If he made $85 million, he's doing just fine.
Who's going to lose out on that? Like, if the fight is, say, $150 million, and they say 50-50, Wilder, I'll give you half, well, you have to go to Abuja National Stadium in Nigeria, or you have to go to back to Saudi. We're going back to Saudi Arabia because only them can pay for this fight. You think that's going to be an issue? That can't be an issue. That can't be an issue.
It can't be an issue, but watch something come up. I guarantee you, they're going to be hell-bent on, it's got to be in America. It's got to be, I don't care where the shit could take place in the fucking ShopRite parking lot for all I care. As long as the fight happens, I could care less. But
I'm telling you, man.
I can see it being an issue as soon as the person's agreed to, something else is going to happen. Because look what happened. 50 million, AJ put a price on it, didn't happen. Hearn, counter. Here's 120 million. Nothing. What happens if they agree to 50-50? Something else is bound to come up that's just going to stop the fight from happening.
But wouldn't it be the same like if it's a broadcaster, say, look, we can only get the money you want if a broadcaster puts up the money. And the broadcaster is going to be DAZN. Only them can spend the kind of money you want. You know what I'm saying? Fox.
So watch there be an issue about him fighting on DAZN, Wilder fighting on DAZN.
Wow.
Instead of cross promoting the shit, watch it be an issue. A paycheck's a paycheck and the fight is the fight, but they're not looking at it like that. At least from what history has shown.
Give me a second, Cosby. Give me a
The money is there.
Go ahead, talk. It's cool. Go ahead.
The money is there. It's the rest of the politics that's getting in the way of the fight. And it's stupid shit. It's simple shit to us looking at it, but man, I don't know. But get the smoke. They all got deep pockets. The money ain't the question. We all know the money is there. Look what happened when Ruiz monkey wrenched it. Now the anticipation is back up for it. What they gonna do? Wait for someone else to lose? Fucking Wilder might lose this Fury fight. And then what happens? Like, the shit don't make no sense. And I'm pulling for Wilder to knock his ass out, but if Fury don't get on no cute shit and he boxes him, there's a good chance Wilder's gonna take that out. But then what happens? I bet you it won't be no problem for AJ and Fury to make that fight anywhere in the world. The US, the UK, you know why? Because they'll both fight each other. It won't be no problem. And that's the next big fight. You got Wilder Fury, AJ Wilder, Fury AJ, Spence Crawford. Those are the next big names in boxing right now. The next big fights. And I don't see it being the third fight if Fury wins this one, because he's gonna go and try to get. He's gonna want to go unify immediately before it's all said and done. Before he does his little WWE shit. So I don't see it being no hiccups for Fury AJ unification bout if he wins that fight. And I'm starting to notice some of that, JS, because it's now it's to the point where he don't even want to listen to what AJ has to say. Like, how much more do you want this dude to bend? There's got to be a common ground. The money is there. These motherfuckers is just being stubborn on both sides.
Hey, man, my apologies. Somebody was there to me. I had to go get some stuff done. Who's this?
Cool.
Yeah, let's get to Smoke.
What up, Smoke? How you doing, sir? Thank you for coming on.
Not too bad. Yeah, this is no problem, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I have to respectfully disagree with some of the take on it, or actually not disagree with it so much as I think there's I think you guys are just putting it in the context that I see it in, and that is neither Usyk or Pulev are really attractive to the boxing public right now, and AJ needs to stay relevant. Like, what the biggest fight this year on the schedule is Tyson and Fury Wilder. Like, to expect there to be some sort of negotiation with AJ is just the kind of stuff that, for me, is doesn't pass the sniff test. Like, nobody's trying to negotiate with you right now. Nobody's engaging with you right now. This whole 70-30 just seems to be like a controversial, same kind of hi-hat stuff the whole time. I'm just tired of it, really. Like Charles was saying, I don't care what the fight is ultimately. I think that you guys, I think that the zone has deeper pockets than they actually do when it comes to the American sports market and the appetite for paying for the most lucrative fight in boxing. But you know, we'll see. Well, really, I would just like the fight to happen. I don't expect that it will in 2020, and it doesn't have anything to do with these negotiation points. It's not going to happen in 2020.
Well,
I don't see why I can't.
Well, they're not talking about making it happen in 2020. They're talking about Usyk and Pulev, at least the sanctioning body.
I know, I know what you're saying, but I'm saying to the fans on the outside looking in.
Well, I mean, it's about the stakes, right? It just depends on what do you need the stakes in order for the fight to be appealing to you. If you need all the belts on line, then you need some cooperation with the sanctioning bodies that may or may not happen. And who knows what the appetite is for the particular promoters. Like, as the fight goes up in value, people, the suits involved, also their cuts go up. So, like Eddie is talking about how much this fight has gone up in value in a very short time. I'm sure, I'm sure he's not the only one looking at this, and I'm sure he's not the only one who has a say in this process.
But Smoke, look at why it went up. Because AJ had just took that loss and he got his belts back. Because at that point, everybody was. I said it. I was like, "Damn, mega fight out the window." He got them straps back. Now, what happens if hypothetically, Wilder goes in there and he lose? Say Fury puts on the same performance without getting knocked down.
Well, it's not just that Wilder. It's not just that AJ put on a performance. Like the fight went up in value just with the negotiation in 2018, and then what happened since then? The first Fury fight, Brazil knockouts, pay-per-views. Like both guys have gone through a bunch.
You cut out, Smoke. I couldn't hear you.
Smoke.
Yo.
You gone?
I know. I couldn't hear him.
Smoke.
He just cut.
Try and get back in, man. Try and get back in, please. He started off by saying that Smoke. He's okay. Well, Smoke
lost service.
Okay, Smoke. Try and get back in. We can't hear you, but if you can hear us, we can't hear you. So what I'm saying to that, he's saying both guys that went to whatever. Deontay Wilder hasn't done much in terms of pay-per-view numbers. He hasn't done much. He did Brazil fight. They had to take it off of pay-per-view because he was supposed to be on Showtime, and they realized that people were not going to pay for it.
I know I wasn't.
So it was on free TV. The Ortiz fight, it was a big mystery how much he made for pay-per-view. That didn't do much. So when Anthony Joshua says, okay, in reality, I know it's not 70-30 or whatever. He said so in the video. In reality, I know that. But you have to know, for me, because he's a businessman also, put the numbers up. Let's make it make sense to me in terms of, okay, I can't offer I can't get 70-30 because whatever, and it needs to be 50-50 because this is what happens. It's on the video. I can play it again. The man said, simply make it make sense to me. See, Smoke is back.
Yeah, but it never made sense to give Wilder 70-30 in the first place. Like 60-40 a couple years ago seemed fair.
Go ahead, Smoke.
You know what I'm saying? He's bringing 3, you're bringing 1. We get unification. There's a little bit of back end money. Both parties are happy. I disagreed with the flat fee, the whole $15 million thing. It's like, come on, dog, super fight. You can't just offer me 15 and this fight has the potential to make 150 and above.
Right.
And I'm taking home peanuts. I'm also a champion too. So 60-40 would have been a fair offer in the beginning. 50-50. I don't see where he warrants the 50-50. I mean, that's just me. 60-40 would have been fair. A little bit of back end money. Both parties are happy. The money is there, but
see,
that's the politics of the game.
Yeah, the issue is really all we know is reported figures for these guys, right? We don't actually know
Exactly.
what it is they're hauling in, and so before, in 2018, there were no, there was zero pay-per-views for Wilder and anywhere. But now Wilder Fury, like you said, Fury is not even popular in England. But Wilder Fury 2, there's a bidding war for the licensing fees, the broadcasting rights in the UK, right? This is a way bigger fight. He's just raised this fight at, like, all of that, bears on the marketability of the fight. If it was 60-40 in 2018, then it's not that stretch for it to be 50-50 today. And if we on the outside fans can see stuff like that, then that's why what AJ says just stirs the passions up, right? It just makes us want to talk about him when he's not really doing anything inside the ring to be very inspirational.
You're joking. I completely disagree with that. I completely disagree with that.
No, what I mean is when it comes to Pulev and Usyk, that's all I mean. I mean, for upcoming fights. That's what I'm saying. His upcoming fights don't inspire any sort of passion from the fans. That's what I meant.
I'm sorry. No, I don't think the Pulev fight does, but I'm sorry. The Usyk fight, I mean, the people on Top Rank already has predicted that Usyk is going to beat Anthony Joshua.
I mean that's fine. That's fine. But that's but what we have is Tony Bellew touching him up and him looking like crap against Chad Witherspoon.
I hear you, but what I'm saying to you is, I don't
okay, UK, but I'm just saying in the US there's no interest. There's very little interest outside of hardcore fans, and even within hardcore fans, they want to see more from Usyk. It's like too soon to be talking about Usyk AJ.
Well, trust me.
Yeah, I'm one of them. Usyk needs another fight.
Well, that's why they're doing Derek Chisora. Derek Chisora is going to fight Usyk. That's what pretty much it was set up as, right? But what I'm saying to you is, in America, you can't really judge about the interest because in America, boxing interest is not really high in America anyway. Not really that high. Boxing is not doing great in America where you can say, well, there's no interest. There's no interest from America for the Usyk fight. There's no interest in America for a lot of fights.
It depends on what it is what do you mean by interest. There are millions of people. There are millions of people on most weekends watching boxing, and it has been that way for over a year now. There's guys all over. Like Crawford pulls over 1 million when he fights. Loma pulls over 1 million when he fights. The Charlos pull, but there's people watch it. It's just
free.
It just I mean but we're talking about the popularity of boxing. You're not talking about whether or not like how they're monetizing free content. And you have to understand that when you're talking about networks like Fox and CBS, they go through hundreds of millions of dollars a week in advertising money. Like they don't. Their money doesn't come from pay-per-views and stuff like that. It comes from stockholders and advertisers. It's a completely different way to monetize, and that's why I think you're like the way you view DAZN's, the way you view DAZN's ability to pay for big fights, I think is different than the American what's happened in America traditionally, and what's happening like really even today.
Well, from what I've seen about DAZN is that DAZN has so far been able to have some of the highest paid fights out there, and they've been able to pay for these fights because they kind of have to, right? So because they're coming from a standing start, they kind of had to pay out extra money,
and they passing that money out.
Right. Showtime couldn't match the $100 million offer, even though Espinoza placed himself firmly in between the DAZN offer and Deontay Wilder. Placed himself in the middle there. Showtime couldn't pay Deontay Wilder that money. Deontay Wilder's on Fox. Is Deontay Wilder going to make $100 million on Fox? No. So what I'm saying, they can monetize it however you want, but you have to also understand that a lot of this money does not come from the broadcaster only. It also comes from the site. So the DAZN is not going to have to put up all this money themselves. They know through their partnerships, whoever's going to buy this fight is going to put up a large chunk of that money also. They'll bargain for the broadcast rights, right? But in terms of the site fees, which runs them, $100-something million, right? In America, where are you going to get that? Plus, in America, if they pay that, if they try and match that money, what are the tickets going to cost?
Right. So the issue that I think you're missing is that the site fees. If you're going to talk about like Saudi Arabian site fees, then you're going to X out the USA pay-per-view market, and so you're going to have to deal with the fact that that's like $100, maybe $200 million that you're Xing out for some Saudi Arabia site fees because the time zones are all messed up. So it's not like you're going to get zero site fees. It's not like you're going to get zero site fees in America, and you're also once you come get those site fees, you're also going to get the pay-per-view market. And
sorry, go ahead.
I don't think the pay-per-view market will hurt that bad, because if they telling me that fight coming on at 2:00 in the morning, guess what? My black ass is up at 2:00 in the morning watching it.
Right. I mean, I get it that's you, but I'm just saying that for a big fight, and I think like Showtime lost the bid to Fox. You know what I mean? It's the issue is when it comes to these big fights, the parent companies get involved. Like Mayweather Pacquiao, it was CBS that made the deal. It was on ESPN. It was a huge cross promotion, and that's what's going to happen with AJ Wilder. This is the most lucrative fight there is. It's going to be Fox and CBS bidding for the rights. It's not going to be the Zone and Showtime. Like this is not.
At some point, Fox and CBS going to have to make an offer to these people. Let Fox and CBS call Anthony Joshua into a meeting then. Like how John Skipper called Deontay Wilder into a meeting. And Deontay Wilder sat there, heard that, and said no.
Yeah, because, right. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's not, like, Wilder's like, I can do my own business. I don't need a multi-fight deal to fight AJ. I just want to fight AJ. And once you figure out how I can fight AJ,
Smoke, don't make it look like they were gonna make this man fight some other strange person. They were gonna give him $20 million to fight a fight that he was already going to fight. He didn't even say no.
I understand.
Hold on.
Correct. And he said, I don't need to. Why does he need to? There's a thing called loyalty in this business. I think that you guys, I think you don't understand that he's like you said, he already had the fight signed. He already had people bringing him to the dance. All he wants to fight is AJ. He does not need let me finish. He doesn't. I'm sorry to cut you off, and I'm going to. He doesn't need the Zone to fight Brazil or to make $20 million, and that's what the point was. What he needs the Zone for is AJ.
They don't need the Zone to fight AJ because AJ's not a DAZN fighter.
Yeah, see, that's the other part of it. That's the other part of it.
Also, I wouldn't have left $100 million on the table for a 3-fight deal. Because look at his 3 fights.
Who said just white cap his salary? But white cap your salary for the biggest fight in boxing twice.
No. I'm not saying that. This is what I'm saying. We already established AJ as a DAZN fighter. I mean, a Matchroom fighter, not DAZN. If the Zone is willing to give me $120 million to fight 3 motherfuckers that I'm gonna whoop their ass anyway, and I know I'm not making $120 million, I would take the $120 million. But I would have to look at the details in the contract to make sure that's exactly what it is. Like, okay, you better pay me my next 3 fights $120 million. So then that knocks off Brazil, Ortiz, and whoever his 3rd fight would have been. I'm pretty sure this Fury fight wouldn't have counted as that 3rd part of their contract because he'd be a fucking fool to take that. But the first 2 fights, that's $30 million a fight.
Charles D.
It was either 4 fights for 120 or it was 3 fights for 100, right? But that's what the whole deal. But the question is, can he make that money somewhere else without cutting his friends who built him up in the first place? Like, why go to the show? Like, whatever.
Dude, it was just a 3-fight deal. If they understand, that's just some money. That's looking out for you. That's your wealth.
Right, I got it. But
that's not saying you can't go back. That's not saying you can't go back to Showtime and do what you do. I'm gonna go take these 3 fights and get this bag.
Right, but you take it to Showtime in the first place and say, you know what, I can get this money here, match it, or get me close to it, and we can just keep rolling out. Because
that's the thing, we don't know if they matched it or not. But I'm just saying, in my opinion, that's what I would have did. I'd have just looked at the contract and I'm knocking 3 motherfuckers out for $100 million.
Charles D.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Charles
Sorry.
Yo.
The deal was Brazil that you were going to fight anyway, and before the zone said 20 million, they were not going to give him 20 million. It was supposed to be pay-per-view on Showtime, right? They said, we'll pay you $20 million. You ain't got to worry about it. And the next two fights is Anthony Joshua. Remember, one of the sticking points for Deontay was that, there was no rematch clause. They don't want to give me a rematch clause. Okay, no problem. We're going to give you Anthony Joshua in America, Anthony Joshua in England, and that's it. Or you can also sign for another fight for another $20 million after, if you beat him. It's up to you, whatever you want.
But then you got to look at potentially what those two fights are worth out of that $120 million.
But hold on.
Already...
Hold on. Here's the problem. He didn't even try and renegotiate. He didn't even say, look, I'll do it, but you got to give me this amount of money to knock this man out. No, it wasn't even that. It's just that I'm not taking the money. I'm gone.
Okay. So there's a couple of things. There's a couple of things. So just one last thing. Why would you cap your salary on twice on the biggest fight in boxing? Like, why would you do that?
That was part of my argument.
You do that because the people who are paying you can't pay you what they were not paying you and still ain't paying you that.
Right. So this is assuming a whole bunch of things we don't. So while there's not taking this deal is basically an assumption on a bunch of stuff you don't know. You don't know that he takes his money somewhere else. You don't know whether or not he can make more money not capping his salary twice.
All of a sudden,
don't know stuff. So it's just so that's what I'm saying. Like until we actually have some concrete numbers, then all we have is like some really unsubstantiated reports on the value of these fighters. And this goes all the way back to the 70-30. And I'm saying because we as fans are supposed to feel some kind of way about this. Meanwhile, they purposely don't give us the information that we could have to make an informed decision. They purposely keep the information away from us, and then we're supposed to go back and forth about who deserves what.
I'll be right back. I got to take this phone call.
You know who started hiding it, whatever? When Steven Espinoza went up there and said, if you only knew how much Deontay Wilder was going to make, all of a sudden Deontay Wilder's purse became secret. Before, they used to tell us, he used to make $900,000, whatever. When it came to the Espinoza thing with the Dominic Brazil situation, they started hiding they didn't say how much, they started hiding his purse. Oh, if you only knew how much to make, you wouldn't. How much is he going to make? All of a sudden,
it's because purses, when they're reported to the athletic commissions, are only guaranteed minimums. They're not the actual total revenue. And even Espinoza was talking about, the broadcasters are part of the revenue. They're not all of the revenue. They may be the most of the revenue, but not all of it. And
Deontay Wilder, then the base pay is reported. Then his pay-per-view is out the back end that people have this back end. Well, if he's doing if he's depending on back end money, he can't be profitable because he's not making no paper. Anyway, I don't want to harp on it.
Yeah, but it's not only just pay-per-view that's back end money. It's licenses, it's licensing fees, it's international broadcasting rights, it's any number of things that go into that back end money.
Well, he don't have no internet because he ain't doing nothing internationally. He ain't doing nothing local. He ain't doing nothing internationally. I'm telling you, he ain't doing nothing. Come on, man. Come on, Smoke.
No, it's licensing fees. What I'm saying is PBC has a license all throughout these countries, and as a PBC guy, he gets a piece of that. Anyway, it's what I'm saying is international license fees. He gets a piece of it. Like the fact that you've seen Wilder fight, and you're not in America is Wilder's getting paid off that.
Odd though, PBC is licensing through the zone to show his fights in globally, whatever. Anyway,
whatever. It's money, good money.
Anyway, I don't want to harp on that because I don't want this to be a long stream. Smoke, early and rap with me, man. I like your vibe. You know what I'm saying? Anyway,
right back at you, man. Right back at you.
Yeah, I mean the last thing I want to talk about is the situation with Stephen A. Smith, and it's not going to be long. Well, Stephen A. Smith is pissed off because Joe Rogan and them were critical of him when he criticized Donald Cerrone for his fight with Conor McGregor. Now that fight was like what, 1 round or something, like 40 seconds or some wild shit. Conor McGregor hit him a couple shoulder strikes, and he crumpled, and I don't know what happened in that fight. But Stephen A. Smith, of course, in his usual style, went off, and he was highly critical, of Donald Cerrone, and he said some not so charitable things. And Joe and the MMA community, didn't like that. They said Stephen A. Smith does not know anything about the sport. He doesn't understand the sport. And he's talking about people being a quitter and all this nonsense. And they don't like that. Donald Cerrone is a guy who's been around for a very long time. I watched Donald Cerrone in WEC before he came over to the UFC. This is a very tough guy. But he's long in the tooth. He's not really a young guy anymore. And I think that was more of a payday for him than anything else. But Stephen A. Smith, is a guy who he's paid to be a loudmouth. And sometimes, his mouth can get ahead of him. And I don't know, Joe Rogan was pissed off, and he said it's not good for the sport. Stephen A. Smith took umbrage with that. And he said his presence being there carried up the numbers. My question is it a good thing to have somebody who is not very knowledgeable about your sport, who is just there for shock value, but might end up saying something about your fighters that might not be the best thing or rooted in reality, just because the person is popular? You know what I'm saying? Stephen A. Smith also, he when Joshua lost to Ruiz, he had his say, Joshua has a glass jaw, he's finished, he's this and he's that. And boxing fans were like, what are you talking about? The man lost the fight. What, why does it have to be all this extra stuff? Why does it have to be all this? He has a glass jaw, he has this and he has that. Joshua got up like 4 times. You know what I'm saying? But he's finished. He's, basically calling the man trash. So, Smoke, let me ask you something. I mean, I don't know if you follow MMA at all, but what do you think about Stephen A. Smith calling combat sports? Have you ever heard him call combat sports?
Yeah. So I'm a long-time MMA fan. I fall in and out depending on what's going on. This is, But anyway, Stephen A., you got to understand that there's like sort of a history to this whole thing. Stephen A. made his sort of boxing bones with, first off, his nickname is Screamin' A, right? So he's like a caricature. That's what he is, hot takes and, over the top. I can't really watch him in the morning anymore. If my old lady's in the room, he's just like really loud and whatever. But he used to have another guy, it's called Skip Bayless, right? And Skip they used to go back and forth about their ignorance, but Stephen A. got his whole bones in the whole boxing during the Manny Pacquiao Floyd thing. And he interviewed Floyd for this whole series during the build-up to the fight. But he's never been, he's a basketball guy, right? That's really what he is. That's what his expertise comes from. But the ESPN hires him to do certain things. He called the Pedraza, or I don't know if he called it, but he was part of the commentary or the broadcast team for the Pedraza Loma fight, and he like fell asleep during it. He was like him and what your boy Teddy Atlas. They went at it after the Pacquiao Horn fight about it being a robbery. Like they're just over the top screaming it. He just gives his hot take commentary. He's known for that kind of thing, and also not really knowing what he's talking about outside of basketball.
The problem, the other issue is Conor McGregor apparently went onto his Twitter and said, Stephen needs to apologize to Donald Cerrone. He sides with Donald with the fans and Joe Rogan and saying, you really should apologize. That's not what's wrong with you. You know what I mean? And
the only reason why it's news is because they're on ESPN together.
Right, but then that's the problem. So I'm gonna come to that. But let me come to that now. Stephen A. Smith does his talk show and he interviews these same fighters. He still interviews them, right? Yeah. How fighter's gonna feel going to a guy? Like, it's one thing to say a guy didn't do a good performance, but when you have to as you say, put on the Screaming A. Smith persona. You have to do all this extra shit. Call this man a quitter, call Joshua a glass jaw. But then you still might end up having to interview the same people, right? It can't, you know, because you have to, because that's what he does. He's still a journalist. He still does his podcast or whatever. He still has to talk to the same people.
Yeah. I mean, okay. There's a whole history behind how Stephen A. got so prominent. There's just there was ESPN fired a bunch of people, and they really hold on 1 second. Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay. Sorry. They basically he became like the chief sort of personality over at ESPN, and he's still the guy. Like, regardless of how people feel about him, you go onto a show, you get millions of people watching him every day, and then you can talk to him about that. Like, that's it. If you feel some kind of way, you're a fighter, go over there and tell him how you feel.
Right.
I don't think that it's not that it shouldn't be that deep or that serious. I think Joe Rogan is adding his 2 cents just to protect the community, but Stephen A. Smith gets a lot more views than Joe Rogan does.
Right. But Stephen A. Smith is basing his argument on the fact that his presence alone, carries up the numbers, right? But again, having somebody with actual knowledge of the sport speaking on things, other than having someone just there basically for, as you say, shock value, or just because they might do some more numbers or whatever, there has to be a cut up, because the MMA community I've found, since I've been watching MMA for, however much years or whatever, is very tightly knit, because MMA, the community came up with people who were, sort of, looked at as weird. MMA is a strange sport. It's not boxing. It's not wrestling. It's some weird thing. So a lot of the people kind of came up together, and the community is very tightly knit, and it's very selective about who they allow to speak on the sport. You know what I'm saying? Going to ESPN, is going to have an issue, because people like Stephen A. Smith are going to be pundits. And I just wanted to know what your opinion was about these people and this situation with Stephen A. Smith, because I personally didn't, because I think even after the Wilder Fury fight, he had some other crap to say, and I was just like, man, Stephen A., just chill. You know what I'm saying? Don't.
Yeah, he's no chill mode. The guy's got no chill. But he's not paid to chill, really. And also, it's a different kind of culture thing. Like, he trash talks, like, even when he talks to NBA stars, and you got to understand that there is a different culture to this whole thing. Like, UFC, Dana White killed the whole UFC community and made it what it is. He didn't allow people to talk bad about his fighters. Like, he killed the whole, like, YouTube, MMA community. They didn't give him access to things. He's basically crafted the message, and this is what they're continuing to try to do, to craft the message. And when you go after people like Stephen A. Smith, who basically is a brand, and he's known for that, and what you're hating on is, basically his shtick. Like, nobody cares about that, really, to begin with, and you're just trying to. It seems like you're trying to deflect from the fact that you just had a crap fight. Yeah, like, I like that. I like Cowboy Cerrone. I'm not. McGregor's cool. I wasn't tripping off the fight. I was watching boxing that night, but whatever. Right. This whole thing about, like, trying to make Stephen A. the bad guy is the same thing that happened with Snoop Dogg. Like, trying to make him the bad. It's just like, I get it. You're trying to, like, and what Stephen A. is saying has a point. They need these, like, cultural iconic influencers to make their sport. I mean, that's kind of how they. That's their biggest fights are like that. Attaching Ronda Rousey to Mayweather, and then McGregor to Mayweather, and these crossover fights. Like, those are the biggest ones. There's very few huge standalone MMA fights that somehow didn't get attached to something else. On the numbers, just on the number side.
I do remember when Dana White tried his best, even though it was the internet community that sort of pushed MMA. He tried his best really to, like, I remember like Sherdog. I used to be on a Sherdog forums a lot, and him and them just were not getting along. Jeff Sherwood and Josh Gross, who used to work for Sherdog, and Josh Gross went to work for SI for a little while, and didn't like people coming there and questioning his fighters or putting tough questions or writing articles that were not so pleasing about his fighters, right? It's weird because it was the same internet community that pushed MMA, the sport of MMA, and in particular the UFC in America, right? There was a time when the MMA community did not see the UFC as a premier brand. It was Pride FC, and he didn't like that shit at all. So he didn't like the fact that a lot of these journalists were writing more favorable things about fighters in Japan than they were in America, right? So, but I don't know, has Dana White himself come out against Stephen A, or is it just Joe Rogan?
No, but it's just, you know, I mean, it's really just about the MMA community and the way their communications is run now. You know, like who gets what assets and who has an appropriate opinion, and they just, you know, they're at this point the grass still exceeds the reach. They still are in the mode where they need to make hay off of, you know, the biggest voice of the, you know, the voice of the UFC is Joe Rogan. It's not like Dana White does what he does, but it's Joe Rogan out there. And then you have like the MMA community with the Chael Sonnens and the Brendan Schaubs and all that stuff. And then even Ariel Helwani, you know, his issues with the UFC and with Dana White specifically.
Yes, sir.
You know, and you know, Stephen A is bigger than all those dudes combined. So it's just like, and he does this routinely. He said like KD was weak for, I mean, this is basketball. He's talking about his weakest movement superstar. He had to deal with KD's mama. You know what I mean? Like, just what it is, what it is. He had to apologize and do all this stuff, but it's part of the ratings. It's part of the show. You know,
Yeah. Well, anyway, man, I'm going to sign off just now, but I didn't get your opinion on the first topic that I put on, where the UK fans are annoyed because Eddie Hearn was asked about the fact that there's a rumor that if Tyson Fury and Joshua fight for undisputed, that fight might not end up in the UK. Eddie Hearn said there's a good chance that it might not, even though he and Joshua might want in the UK, that there's going to be people bidding so much money for the fight that he himself, for his client, he can't ignore it. He will not be able to ignore what's going to be offered for the fight. And people were not pleased about that. People were highly annoyed. They were annoyed. It should be in the UK, saying Joshua has made enough money and this and that. What's your opinion on that?
Eddie Hearn says so much stuff that it just winds up coming to bite him in the butt at times. I remember when the $50 million was contingent on it not being in Saudi Arabia. And the reason why they say they rejected it was because they wanted to have the fight in the UK. And so now, you know, situations, when you say stuff like that, you breed expectations in people. And then, you know, the circumstances change and now you got to explain yourself and whatever. If he is willing to, Matchroom, as a CEO of a company, I understand what Eddie Hearn is doing, right? He's looking out for whatever interest he can, and that may coincide sometimes with, you know, the best interest of his client. You know, that's just what it is.
Well, you know, like some people say, I mean, that's kind of his job. As the promoter, you're supposed to look for as much revenue as your client can get. And if, you know,
no, not necessarily. Not necessarily. You can get.
Well, hey, but he can also, you know, would it be, you know, irresponsible of him to ignore the offer and not say, look, this is what's being offered for the fight?
What I'm saying is, as a promoter, his loyalty is to Matchroom USA and secondarily to what AJ's interests are. To the point that they are synergistic and they are harmonious, fine. But there's a point in this whole thing where Matchroom expects to be around longer than AJ, right?
But I think
So they have
most
to look at
people like that. I mean,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I'm not saying it's a negative at all. I'm just stating the reality of the situation, right? So depending on the most lucrative offer for his interests, he would be, that's only responsible. That's what he's in business to do. I'm not mad, why be for doing his job, whether or not that helps AJ or doesn't help AJ. It depends.
Right.
AJ's got to fight.
Well, look, Angel Santos just come. Angel Santos, I'm actually logging off, man. It's been an hour and something. I don't want to do any long streams. I can't do these 2 and 3 hour streams like some people. Smoke, I want to thank you for coming on. Charles D, everybody, Lisa Bales, W, everybody who was on and gave me a minute of your time. I really appreciate it. Smoke, anything you want to say for the end? I'm gonna log out.
No, man, thanks for having me on. Respect, like I said, I like the vibes from the first time I heard you till now. Anytime around in a minute.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you, King.
Peace, man.
All right, peace and power to everybody. Thank y'all for coming on, man. Have a nice day.